Good evening and welcome to a new edition of To The Point, first edition of To The Point in the holy month of Ramadan. May the month bring, this holy month bring in its wake lots of good tidings. This evening we're going to be discussing Islam and coexistence. And what does Ramadan really mean? Is it just a matter of relinquishing or stopping eating and drinking, or much, much more? The essence of Ramadan and Islam in our discussion this evening. With us this evening is Dr. Muhammad Khafif, Islamic scholar. Pleasure to have you with us as usual.
Thank you very much.
Ramadan, we started fasting today. In terms of how Islam regards those who only recognize that there are certain rituals that they have to observe, like praying, like reading the Quran, like the zakah, like doing good deeds. Some people really do not think of doing that stuff except during the holy month of Ramadan. I don't want to say, is this acceptable? But I want to question the weight of that when it comes to how God rewards us or regards us, if I can put it that way.
Well, strictly speaking, God rewards us for every good deed we do, and punishes us for every bad thing we do on the other side. And those people who consider that Ramadan is the only month for worship are really losing so much, because the spirit of Islam indicates that we are half flesh and half spirit.
Yes.
And when the spirit dies out during 11 months, how would it recuperate and restore its vividness only during the month of Ramadan, and then goes to sleep again after Ramadan? It is a losing bargain, actually, and I don't think those who do that really understand the spirit of Islam at all. They consider Islam just a set of rituals or rites, as we call them, and worship is, and that's it, and all are physical. Nothing devolves into the spirit, because if their spirits are alive, they would never lose the other 11 months.
We're starting this holy month today. What is a good Muslim supposed to do on that month?
Well, it is Ramadan can be considered the peak of the spiritual journey throughout a year. So it's not just a small period of worship. No, it's a peak.
Yeah.
And during that peak, one starts to build up a reserve for the rest of the year.
Yes.
So when we start with Ramadan, many of us sometimes are not very punctual with prayers, not very punctual with almsgiving and so forth. So it is an opportunity to restore what we should be doing and continue with it for the rest of the year. Of course, Ramadan is concerned with fasting. This is the main religious rite of Ramadan.
Is it just fasting from eating and drinking?
Absolutely not. Again, we look at the spirit and the flesh. Physically, we refrain from eating and drinking and some other activities, but this is not the whole story.
Yes.
It is totally ridiculous to lie, to perjure, to steal, to slander while I'm fasting. What am I fasting for? I mean, it's just hunger and thirst. God doesn't need our hunger and thirst. This exercise of refraining from eating and etc., is just an introduction to what should be happening inside, in the heart or in the spirit, as whatever we call it. So if but my physical activity does not reflect on my spiritual one, then there is no need for both. So again, this is a losing bargain. Let's always remember that the human self, the definition of the human self, is the conjunction of the dust and the light, flesh and spirit. Call it what you wish. But it is a combination of two opposites. And if those two opposites do not work in harmony together, then the self is lost. That's why the Holy Quran addresses the self as the entity that does the good, does the bad, gets rewarded, and gets punished. The spirit is eternal and is there all the time. The physical goes away and will never come back until the afterlife comes. But their presence together is the whole essence of human nature.
Yes.
And this, we find this in the Holy Quran in many verses.
The essence of Islam is moderation.
Yes.
Extremism, either way, is not tolerated. Why is it that we feel that moderation is evaporating? You have extremism on both sides, either people extremely unobservant of worship, and I don't mean worship just praying and fasting. I mean even the way you're acting, the way you're behaving, as you were saying, the spiritual side. And others who are extremely fanatic, to the point of making you feel that you are repulsed from the religion. How can we get more people to walk in the middle, to become more moderate, especially the Islamic world? Most of the age group are the young ones. And this is our future. And this is why it is extremely critical to start raising more moderate Muslim youth, people.
Let us remember that the world has become a small village.
Yes.
And the advances of technology in the Western world, plus the very strict separation between state and religion, or state and church as they call it, did have a very drastic effect on morals. There are so many things now that are accepted and legalized and protected by law that were sins, let's say, 50 years ago. Not even more than that. 100 years ago, that there would be burning at stakes.
Yes.
So, unfortunately, this advancement to the physical or to the materialistic, like Mr. Newton says, to every action there is a reaction in the opposite direction. So many souls, when they see the materialism is just devastating the whole world, they try to find some other clues under which to protect themselves,
yes,
so that they wouldn't get lost like those who think they've gone through this path. So I can say that the development of technology has not been accompanied by an equally advanced development of ethics. There should be a code of ethics that can accept and explain and make people tolerate the advancements that are happening now, so that people would not lose their faith and think...
Why is it that there is no balance? In your opinion, what happened? Is it the responsibility of the state, the responsibility of the house, the responsibility of religious figures? Where did we go wrong? Why is it that the message is not delivered and comprehended appropriately?
Well, it's materialism. Simply in one word, it's materialism. And let's remember that during the 80s, there was a very strange principle in business. And I was really a close audience to this in my work life and so forth. It was a motto in the 80s, greed is okay. So if greed is okay, so many other things that were forbidden should become okay.
Yes.
So who will say no? The multinationals, the millionaires, the technology masters of the world, who earn their money through this trend for greed. I mean, I'm not putting the blame on anybody. It is just an international trend that is now driving humanity towards all is physical, all is this life. There is no mention of ethics except very, very rarely, and no mention at all of what will happen in the afterlife as a consequence of what we are doing today to ourselves and to our environment and to our planet and to ourselves and children.
Yes.
People are in oblivion to what will happen in the next life. And this is very, very dangerous, because if we are not aware of what will happen in the afterlife, we will not be able to lead a correct life here in this phase.
Yes.
Because this phase was created for us to build our next life. If we build it wrongly, or if we build it without taking into consideration that there will be another life, then it will be we will be facing the disaster we are facing today.
As I was saying earlier, most of the people, the generation, is the younger generation. The problem is that as technology advances, the young generation tends to be more information-oriented, more research-oriented. Nothing is taken for granted. There are lots of whys. We need more clarification. You need to elaborate. And this is where we are having a problem, that do we have enough moderate scholars, and I'm not talking about Egypt, I'm talking about worldwide, to ensure that those young minds are receiving the information in a moderate fashion that is appropriate and technologically advanced to meet the needs of the young people? Because the way I receive the information is definitely different from the way my children are receiving and the generation after that. Are we taking this into consideration, that as technology advances, how to deliver the message, the methodology of delivering the message really has to be different?
Well, this is a two-sided question. What's happening now, and what should we doing in the future? About what's happening now, the answer to this question is very obvious and very clear, unfortunately. When you look at the increasing trend of atheism between the young people, both in the Muslim world and in the Christian world.
Yes.
And sometimes
it's quite scary.
Yes, and sometimes they swerve from atheism to fanaticism in just a split second.
Yes.
Because they find out that atheism does not give the answers again. So let's look somewhere else. So this is how ISIS gets its candidates and gets its volunteers who sacrificed their modern and very sophisticated life in the West, especially in the very rich countries of the West, and go to ISIS in the desert to seek answers. Those people are not there to fight or to kill. No, they're in search for answers, because they were promised answers by people who don't have those answers themselves.
Yes.
So what's happening today tells us that we do not have, at the present moment, we do not have sufficiently moderate preachers or teachers or mentors to guide our youth. What we should do for the future
Yes.
is a huge responsibility on our shoulders, and the very next generation to us. We have to look into building this code of ethics and this environment of toleration and understanding and debate and long-windedness in discussion and so forth, and logic, and try to teach that to our children as well.
Should that be in schools, in curriculums, for example? I mean, Egypt right now is revisiting all curriculums in schools. Is this something that the schools should be doing, or is this something that the home should be doing, or the mosque? I mean,
I think the matter has become so critical that everybody should take part. Everybody. When a child is brought up, I think you must have seen the video of the 5- and 6-year-old children who were stoning the reporter who went into the ISIS camp to see what's going on in there. So those children were brought up from very, very little childhood into fanaticism.
yes,
It will be almost impossible
to deviate.
to change those people. But it will be possible to look at the new generations which live or start living in a moderate and understanding environment. And the old trick does not work anymore, as you said. Follow us and you will get the answers. As soon as you follow them, oh, sorry, since you have followed us, this is a question you shouldn't ask.
That's what their essence, those movements, this is what it's all about. It's about being obedient.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this happens, with all due respect, this happens again also in Christianity
and all religions, fanaticism.
Sunday schools and so forth, it
Yes.
happens like this. Those elders do not know the seriousness of the harm they're doing to the new generations. Because they get lost, and of course when their lives get lost, the whole societies get destroyed.
Islam and coexistence. How does Islam regard coexistence, tolerance of different religion, tolerance of different beliefs? How is this regarded in Islam?
This is one of the basic principles of Islam, in fact. And the freedom of belief in Islam is the cornerstone of belief. If somebody is not free to believe in what he wants to believe in, then there's no sense in this kind of belief. It's not even a belief. It's a hoax or whatever you can call it. The tolerance in Islam is very obvious throughout our history, especially in the history of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And this brings me to a very critical point, which I wish to raise in the media and so forth. Why don't we look at Prophet Muhammad as a person?
Okay.
Okay? Meaning, why don't we look at Prophet Muhammad as a husband? Why don't we look at him as a friend?
So his personal conduct.
His personal conduct,
Okay.
his everyday activities.
Not just the message that he came out to deliver, but
Absolutely.
how he conducted himself.
Yes,
how he behaved.
Because how he conducted himself is part of the message, actually.
Yes.
So it's not just the reciting of the Holy Quran or leading people in prayer, no. When you look at Prophet Muhammad's behaviors throughout his life, both in Mecca before Hijrah or in Medina after Hijrah, we'll find so many precious and extremely valuable lessons which, if those fanatics try to learn, they will really discover that they have lost their way in a very dangerous way. Because this is not Prophet Muhammad. What they're doing, what they're saying, what they're teaching is not Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Whether he brought us the Holy Quran or the prayer or all the Islamic worship rites, okay, well and good, and thank you very much. But in addition to that, he taught us how to deal with every single aspect of life.
Yes.
And he did it in a way that that created such a beautiful and serene and stable society. Although the society included Muslims, included Jews, Christians, disbelievers.
Yes.
People.
Yeah, there were lots of non-believers at the time.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So why are we not looking at this? Why are we looking at things that some people say that they are carved in stone? If a piece of hair of a woman appears, it will be hell on earth and hell after earth. I mean, this is not the spirit of Islam, and this is not the life of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam.
Why is it that we are more concerned with the appearance of religion rather than the outside, the facade, rather than what's inside? The reason I'm asking this is because when you say a piece of hair and stuff like that, you'd see a woman that would be wearing the hijab, for example, but she would not be praying. She might be lying. Why is it that this trend is increasing, that it's just the appearance, but not
This is the
spirit?
The simplest question you have asked me today. Because it's easier. It's easier to preach and easier to criticize.
But not to practice correctly.
But not to practice and not to go into depth of the real valuable ethics. Okay? How do I preach a person not to lie and not to steal and not to perjure and so forth? And how do I teach him just to wear a galabeya and a woman could cover her? This is much, much easier and gives more political influence. Hey, you, cover your hair. Hey, your galabeya is not long enough. Hey, you pray too fast. But how about ethics, morals, behaviors, social acceptance? All this is very difficult, or much more difficult to teach and to criticize than appearances. So this is a sale of power, and I don't think I need to do the rest, because the rest is inside. I don't care about it. I don't want to do anything about it.
Islam or religion in general, and it's how politics affected religion, how culture affected religion. Are we really being pushed in that direction, whereby religion is becoming politicized or socio-economicized? I mean, outside factors and how they are affecting our perception and action when it comes to religion.
Very simply said, Islam has become a vehicle to political power. End of story. So anybody who can deceive people for some time at least does this in order to gain political power, because the final objective of such movements and trends is political or military or whatever power in general. So why not? If I can influence people religiously, I penetrate into their souls, okay? And I can show them that I control their life here and their life afterwards. So if they don't obey me, they're fully ruined.
Yes.
No paradise, no reward, no whatever. I would very strongly recommend that everybody who wants to know about political religion would watch a movie called The Book of Eli. It is a typical application and demonstration of what a holy book could do to a society.
Yes.
And of course, it is a very entertaining movie, but the essence behind it is very dangerous and should be taken into consideration. And I would make this movie part of a curriculum for students in the secondary stage.
When it comes to guidance,
Yes.
we refer to the Quran, and we also refer to the Hadith,
Yes.
which are statements that support certain verses of the Quran.
Yes.
When it comes to the young generation, it is noticed that they're questioning the Hadith. Some are saying that this is a human being that is relaying this Hadith, this statement, and it's from one generation to the other, maybe. Or they're saying it could be. By the time it reached us today, it could be an inaccurate statement.
A serious question, but it can be for open minds and for people who really are willing to learn and to delve into their faith and belief. The answer is very simple, because we have the Holy Quran, which sets the framework of Islam and sets the basic rules. Any of those hadiths can be tested against this framework and those principles. If such hadith does not comply or does not conform with those frameworks and principles,
Yes.
then it could be in doubt.
Okay.
If it's not, if it is, then there is no reason to doubt it and to doubt the efforts of people who spend many lifetimes trying to ascertain that those hadiths are correct. And now this brings us to a by-forked road. Many of those hadiths are about basic belief concepts, so they can be very simply tested. Okay, some of the hadiths talk about very detailed, minor incidents about certain very abnormal deeds and so forth. Again, those can be tested, but if you don't accept it, so be it, no problem. So there is no issue here to doubt. You have the framework. There is no doubt about the Holy Quran, and if you doubt the Holy Quran, then it's another totally different issue. But if you believe in the Holy Quran and its principles, you can test the hadith against it, and that's a very simple, what you call it, a litmus test, if you see what I mean.
Yes. Another argument that we hear by lots of young people is that when Islam came into existence, it was a very, very long time ago.
Yes.
The world was different. The message was devised for that time.
Nope.
And today the message should be different.
No. When this issue is raised,
And it's raised quite a lot. And certain things in the Quran, they say, well, it was then, it's not fitting today.
yeah, when this issue is raised, I try to convince my audience that there are things or matters or principles that transcend time, that are not a function of time.
Yes.
And I give a very simple example, and not in the Holy Quran. Especially if I'm addressed by a Christian or by a Jew. The question posed here is, could you please tell me which of the 10 commandments is out of time? Show me one. Most of them don't know the 10.
Yes.
Okay? But even those who know the 10, they just,
They cannot answer.
they can't answer.
Yes.
The same goes with the principles of Christianity and the Holy Quran. There are principles that cannot be measured against time. because life proves it once and again and again and again that this principle is correct in our century, in the 15th century, in the 10th century, and at the time of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. So why argue something that has proven itself hundreds and thousands of times? Let us, and it is good to make those people who are questioning give you examples from themselves, from their lives and from their... you'd say, well, I saw this in the Holy Quran and I don't think it fits our time. Okay, as we said, if we have a moderate mentor and a moderate teacher, then let's discuss it. Okay, let's see the pros and the cons and let's see which one outweighs the other. Doing that or not doing that. Usually those with an open mind get convinced very easily. Stubborn minds who have a fixed idea about something are usually incorrigible.
As we talk about a global village, the movement of people is fiercer now, is faster now.
Yes.
The young generations are moving, seeking education everywhere, seeking work everywhere. We're no longer stationed in one place. As we move, there is a responsibility. For example, a country would have its embassy in a European country, for example. The embassy is to make sure that it serves the interests of the Egyptians, the Sudanese, the Kuwaitis, whatever it is. But what about serving the religious needs of the people abroad? The reason I'm asking this is because most of the fanatic, quite a large chunk of the fanatic movement really did not start in Muslim countries.
Yes.
This is the reality.
Yes.
It started in Europe, in different places, where it is easy to brainwash the young people that have been uprooted generations and generations, and really you're giving them your version of what Islam is about, what Christianity is about, what Judaism is about, for example, and you raise this small fanatic nucleus that just keeps growing and growing and growing until it is blowing everything up. Whose responsibility is it? And I know that in some countries we have what we call the Islamic Center, but definitely it is not. It's not everywhere, and it's not enough.
Yes, yes.
Some people are saying this should be the responsibility of Al-Azhar, for example. How can we ensure that a moderate version of Islam, a moderate Islamic scholar, a moderate sheikh, is addressing our young people abroad?
Well, we are treading on dangerous ground here, Lina, because you assume the innocence of those movements.
They're not innocent. That's why I'm saying it's very, unfortunately.
When we
they're not benign.
When we address it this way, we assume that
we're trying to be diplomatic, but in reality, we've seen how malignant they really are.
Well, as you said, the religious establishments in Muslim countries have a huge responsibility to handle those societies. And if we admit that those establishments are not sufficiently good enough to handle those inside their countries, I think that it is a very far-fetched wish that they would be becoming influential in foreign land.
Yeah.
But however, we must remember that Al-Azhar in particular, the creation of the secular faculties of the Al-Azhar University was based on the principle that those colleges or faculties would produce a generation of preachers and professionals at the same time.
Yes.
So those people go out to the world, and they live their own life, and they earn their own living from the professions they have studied, and in the meanwhile act as ambassadors of Islam in those countries. But of course, this exercise hasn't spread out sufficiently enough, and it hasn't brought the fruit it was expected to. Maybe because they are not so huge in number. Maybe they prefer to stay where they are. They don't like to travel abroad. But I know that Al-Azhar does spend some effort in order to enlighten the Islamic communities outside the Islamic world. But I don't think it has succeeded enough. It can do better. It can do more.
Yes.
And I cannot really answer why this is not happening.
Is it enough to say that Al-Azhar is responsible? Because some are saying that this is the minaret of Islam, really. I mean, this is the educational minaret, so to speak, and it should be responsible. Can Al-Azhar cope with that on its own?
No. Because for Al-Azhar to do this role successfully, it should have political backing. And
international political backing.
Yes. And although Al-Azhar is not exactly poor, but it may need also financial support in order to be able to finance those envoys that should be sent over to the world. And we say Al-Azhar because this is the only means we have. Of course, there are some universities in Saudi Arabia, I think, and some in Kuwait. They try to do the same role, but of course, it's a matter of not only a matter of content; it's a matter of numbers.
Yes.
And the Saudi population is so small; it cannot spread out all over the world that easily. We can do that if we have the means and the will.
What message would you be? We're starting the Holy Month. What message would you be directing to Muslims worldwide as we start this month?
I would say, Muslims, please bear in mind what Corona has done to us, COVID-19 has done to us.
I was going to ask you a second question, since you're linking the two.
Remember that you can use this month as a jumping board in order to help those who are in need, because those who are in need have increased multifold during this period.
Yes.
Due to the lack of jobs and to the lack of businesses and so forth. So let's take this month as a starting point for a better way of dealing with ourselves and with others. And I don't think there is any a more serious or a more dangerous aspect in our lives now than this pandemic that should open our eyes to what we should be doing and what we should be taking into consideration for our afterlives.
Since you raised the issue of COVID, I was going to ask you, in Islam, what's our responsibility when it comes to pandemics like this? In other words, certain verses in the Quran are very, very clearly stipulate that anything that can harm you or others, you should forbid from using, for example. Can we take COVID as something that can harm me and harm others, and there are certain observances that I should do? I should take care of myself. I should make sure that I use all the sanitation factors. I mean, is this a responsibility? Because some people say, well, COVID is not written in the Quran,
Yes.
but the essence is there. I mean, it's not a list, but can we say that this is where this verse is applicable as well?
Absolutely, absolutely, because a pandemic, just like a flood, just like an earthquake, just like any other natural disaster, if it is natural, okay? This is an issue for another episode, but anyway, those are mentioned in the Holy Quran again as a framework or as a principle.
Yes.
So, and the Holy Quran teaches us that actually, let me say it this way, the World Health Organization should benefit a lot by adopting the principles of protection that are covered in the Holy Quran as general policies for peoples and lives and health and so forth. A pandemic, like any other disaster, disturbs the balance of life.
Yes.
Okay, so anything that disturbs the balance of life requires a response. This is very clear and obvious in Islam. Very strictly speaking, if a place is affected by a plague or something, nobody should leave and nobody should enter. First principle of protection.
Yes.
Okay, لا ضرر ولا ضرار. Don't dare expose others to a symptom that you doubt that you may be carrying, in order to protect yourselves and others. And Islam is very flexible in this matter. For example, it is very commendable that the Muslims pray in gatherings, congregational prayer. But again, individual prayer is there. Okay? If we have to, we can do it, we can pray.
So now we should try to reduce the numbers. You can do your worships at home.
Exactly. We should limit our travel. We should limit our entertainment. We should limit, all this is mentioned in the Holy Quran in one way or other.
So the iftar and suhoor parties, please try to curb them down.
Exactly.
I'm translating this into Ramadan verses here.
You know, many people don't know this, that Salat al-Qiyam, the prayer that is performed after night prayer.
Yes.
It is usually performed in congregationally or in gatherings. In fact, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ prayed with Muslims this prayer only 3 days.
Not the 10 days.
Not even. I'm talking about the Qiyam that is all over the month.
Yes.
Only 3 days, and then he continued performing them in his house, and Muslims did that as well. Okay, for whatever reason. So there is no lack of flexibility in Islam or in our worshipping rights that would endanger us or endanger anybody who's around us.
So again, when it comes to COVID, we have a message from God that we have to protect ourselves and others.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Protect our children, protect our parents, protect the society.
Certainly so.
Very clear cut.
Very clear.
Dr. Mohammed Al-Khafif, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Unfortunately, our time is up, and we wish you a very happy Ramadan.
Thank you.
And safe Ramadan.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you, the viewers. With that, we come to the end of this edition of To The Point. We'll see you same time next week. Until then, good night. Our Ramadan time is 11 p.m. Cairo local time, and we wish you a very happy, holy month. And good night.